So today I'm going to be covering Inkscape. Inkscape, and believe it or not, I have dug through all of YouTube, and I have not found a single tutorial of anyone trying to practically get people started, okay? Think about this something really similar to something like Adobe Illustrator, right? Like where people use it to make like logos or like clip art, or even like or even like just general illustration. Inkscape is probably more unique because it is a fully open source solution, and also unlike like Affinity Designer or like Adobe Illustrator, it's free. Okay, so what can you do but complain and contribute to the code for the price of free, right? But I want to present this today because I've actually been doing a lot of I use a lot of I do a lot of illustration during the day as of late. So one thing I want to do is I actually just took the time to actually try to learn how to use Inkscape, okay? And then if you like, you can download Inkscape from their web. If you're on Windows, I mean, you should download through Chocolatey. But if you really need to, you download it from their website. Okay, you can if you're on Mac, you can download through Homebrew. I've used the Mac version before, and if you want to use the Linux version, I mean, I download the Flatpak, but you can do whatever you want. Sure your distro has it. Okay, so. When you boot up Inkscape, you're gonna see a menu. It's gonna look a little bit like this, right? So you get to choose how you want it. And of course, if you get presented like this, like me, using the Flatpak, right? What you want to do is you want to go over here to this box, and you're gonna check dark theme, okay? Because we need to end the cancer that is light theme. So sick of programs shipping everything in light theme, okay? And then all this other stuff is really just ancillary. So like you want to do control like what the canvas looks like. I mean, this isn't actually going to show up. This is just sort of just how they sort things out. And then you have various things to like sort the appearance of your icons. But I like my fruity icons, okay? And remember, you got to give back, okay? It's a free program, okay? They have they have corporate sponsors and they have a GitHub page, but please give back to them. They need it. They deserve it. They do a really good job over at the Inkscape places, okay? And then you click over here, and now it's time to get started, right? So what you're gonna do here is gonna click on new document, and then this big window here is gonna pop right up, right? So typically, the way I actually do this is, I mean, I'm sure you can actually like, go into like the pen tool here and try to squiggle a thing, right? And you can see it does like, you're like, what is this? You just did this like really weird shape thing, and it fills in all of these little holes. It's really cool. It's a little different for people who are used to something like a GIMP, right? Or if people use something like GIMP, right? You can do something like this, right? Sort of like what you'd expect if you were using a pen, right? So give me a moment here. So I actually have a drawing tablet. I've done a video on it before. It's a really old video, back when I first got it earlier this year. But this drawing tablet, actually, you can, because on Linux, drawing tablets have first-class support because they have an Xorg driver, and Wacom's people is actually nice enough to actually make one themselves, right? So you can see here, I can actually move with my pen, and you can actually draw little squiggles. So I just want to say, like, subscribe. This is terrible handwriting. Boom, subscribe to my channel, all right? And like the video. Ooh, yeah. So I mean, like, certainly you could use this for a lot of creative drawing, but I don't think that's what while Inkscape is totally capable of doing these things, I don't think this is the real purpose of Inkscape. So for point of reference, here in GIMP, I actually have the logo to our channel, right? And yes, I did actually create this myself. And the logo for our channel is actually pretty simple. You'll see I actually have a lot of drafts of this, but this is actually the one that made the cut, right? So you'll actually see here that this is actually just multiple letters here, actually just smushed together. So one of the things that I'm going to do, what I would like to actually just show here is actually importing something, right? So I actually have the logo right here. It's a PNG file, right? And I'm just going to drag and drop it in, right? And you'll see here you get presented of a menu saying, would you like to import and blah, blah, blah. Usually the defaults are pretty good. Depends on what your project is, but I think generally these are pretty good, right? And boom. As you can see, our logo is really big. I actually made it probably way too big. So So, one of the things you can do here is I'm going to try to make this smaller. As you can see, when we first opened it, it was like this. And now it's like this. And it's like, ooh, that's a big. So what we need to do is actually need to size it down, right? So if you want to click, you can click on this little mouse key here, right? You can also press S, just S. You don't have to, no thing. So if you're on another tool, you press S. Then that'll instantly open the move tool. So you're now in the move tool, right? So press S, everyone. And then click on the thing, right? And then you can just make it smaller. And then you'll see it doesn't maintain the aspect ratio, right? So if you want to maintain the aspect ratio, you want to hold the control key. I know a lot of you will be tempted to hold the shift key, but it's actually the control key. Some of the key bindings for Inkscape are a little weird, right? At least the default key bindings. You can change them, but whatever. So I'm going to actually delete all this other stuff here. So once I get the logo to fit the little page size here, right? Realistically speaking, just because this is a logo, right? And this is going to be sized like an SVG, right? I don't actually imagine this being very big, grand scheme of things, right? Because SVGs are actually they're just a bunch of series of lines that your computer is able to assemble into a thing that looks like an image, right? But part of the creative process, what makes this really difficult, is explaining to the computer, hey, this is how you actually draw these shapes and make them look this way, right? So you'll see there's a lot of like curved edges here, right? And naturally, like everyone imagines computers thinking as like, thinking in like really straightforward ways, like drawing lines or whatever, right? I mean, after all, the very first computers were just terminals, just like this one, right? But one of the key things that makes Inkscape's vector graphics is you can actually just size stuff around, right? So if you do Control Shift D, it's Command Shift D if you're on Mac, right? And then you'll get a window that looks a lot like this, right? So in this window, what you can actually do is you can actually go into here and then you can actually size the canvas, right? So you'll notice here that the canvas is actually way too big. So by sizing down the canvas here, this is in millimeters. So if you size the canvas down just like this, it's not exactly the most scientific method, but it's a method that actually works remarkably well. And then we're just going to size it down just so it fits the boundary of this thing right here. Just enough. Then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the horizontal side here, and I'm going to give it a good shrink, maybe about the same size for 55. Yeah, there we go. And then I just need to size this to fit. Right? So remember what we learned. Go back here, Control, mouse key, boom. 55 by 55. It's a little off here, so I just need to get it to match. And you can see it's not exactly lined up on the edge here, despite it being completely square, because I preserved the aspect ratio. That's how I know it's not completely square, right? And just do that. And then boom. This is the logo. And now you're like, well, what exactly is the deal here? What do we need? So you'll notice I just went up here to click layer. So if you don't see it already, right, you want to go here where it says layers and objects, right? And then I also recommend going here where it says fill and stroke. Click on that, and you'll get another panel that looks like this. And I feel like with these are what you really need to actually get started making yourself your first SVG, right? And I'm going to put away my drawing tools because you actually don't need these. You can actually do everything that you see that I'm doing right here with just a regular mouse, right? So you don't actually need to go and buy a drawing tablet. You can just use a mouse or a touchpad or whatever to do your thing, right? So I'm going to try to replicate the logo just purely using tools from Inkscape, right? So, but naturally, the first thing that comes to mind is we're going to have to draw lines, right? And typically when I'm doing this, I'm usually tracing other people's work, right? So in this case, it's my own work, right? So if I just zoom in here, you see it's a little blurry. It's what I get for using PNGs, right? And you'll notice that you can move the line, and then you can actually just use this to draw a line, right? But if you actually just want to be precise, Inkscape actually has their own image, their own layer tracking here, right? So if I hold the control key, right, you'll see that this line right here, no matter where my mouse is always perfectly straight. That's exactly what I want. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to click right there. There you go. I drew my first line. And then I'm going to go up here. And you kind of want to do this so you trace over everything in your little design, right? I'm going to go over here because I'm trying to get all of this red, the first part of the red T, right? Gonna move this all the way down here. So now we're coming to a part where there's a curve, right? You're probably like, well, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna actually gonna stop do this part, right? So keep drawing the thing right here, right? But you see where it almost curves right here. You'll see where the cursor right here is connected to this end of the red line. It's right here, right? So I'm gonna go right here, right? You see where I'm holding the control key and my mouse, and I click, right? You'll see it then draws this line, right? You see it's actually a little off. So if you ever make a mistake, right, hit the backspace key. That'll remove the last dot that you drew in your shape. So then I'm just gonna do this. A little off again. It's close enough. And then I'm gonna put this right here. I'm actually gonna use this to fix this later. So let's see here, draw a straight line. So remember what we did with the curve right there, right? What we're going to do is we're going to fill it so that it meets this horizontal line right here, right? It's going to look a little more blocky, and then we can draw our actual thing. It's not perfect here either, but we'll fix it later. And then we're going to complete the line here. And then bam, we now have a filled shape. But you'll notice that the fill is black, right? And you're like, this doesn't seem like the right color, right? So one thing we can do is, if we go back to the layers here, you'll see there's this path, right? And that's what this big T shape is. This big T shape on the outside right here, that's this thing right here. You have a little eyeball. You can actually just go up here and use this to add and remove something from your image, right? And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take, in my case, you might not be doing this if you're design, right? But this is just what I'm going to do, right? So because my thing's a solid color, it's very easy to do, right? I'm going to pick an image. You can click on the little eyedropper tool here. You'll notice they're nice enough. They'll tell you. Press the letter D. So press D. Then I can click on the color. You'll notice when I hover over colors, it'll actually highlight what the color actually is. So I'll just press D. Press that, and then boom. Now my fill is that color, and now when I add the T, go back to the T, look at that. My T is now the correct color. It's a little hard to see, but if I remove the image, you can see, look at that. There's my T, right? And because I know how I actually designed this image, I'm going to try to, because you'll notice that there's this little like Bezier curve thing here, right? And I'll show how to fix that when we get there, right? So what I'm going to do next is we're going to have to actually fix this shape, right? So just for demonstration purposes, just because it's easier for me, and I think it'd be easier for all you guys, right? I'm going to make this green, okay? Everyone's favorite thing. You can go green screen whatever you want on this green, okay? I want to see memes of this video. Link memes of this video down below, all right? So remember, B lets you draw shapes, right? So if I want to draw a triangle, bam, now I have a triangle, right? But I mentioned, how do you actually edit this to actually make it match, right? So if you press N, right? The N is the node key, and it's actually this thing that's above the mouse right here, right? And if you click on it, you'll notice that every single point that I drew right here, so including this point that I actually didn't mean to draw right here, I can actually just go and delete this, right? So if we click on this, right? Then go on to this part right here where it says delete selected nodes. This should be the third one over, right? Click on that, and then it removes it. Right? And you'll see that it actually caused an imperfection by removing it, because now this is actually slightly curved, right? So I need to add this little box here, and then boom. It's not quite perfect, so I need to keep going, right? So we're going to go here, and then if you click on the point, you can actually adjust the handle, and this actually allows you to finally adjust the curves on your design, right? So click on that. Seems good enough. But it's not perfect. See, this is my OCD coming out. It's not actually perfect. But we'll just leave it like that, right? For now, right? And then I want to click on this. So how are we going to actually fit? So let's go fix this curve, right? I remember I mentioned earlier, how are we going to actually fix the curve here, right? So what we're going to do is you can actually take this point, right? You can move it, but that you'll notice that moving it like this still makes this thing look like some sort of like squarish looking thing, right? So how do we actually go and change the curve? So the first thing we're going to do is move this point all the way up here, right? And then what you do is if you click on the line between this point and this point, what you can do is you can click on the line, and you can actually notice when you bend it like this, it allows you to manipulate it so that you can move the letter, so then you can adjust, and then you can also use the handles to adjust it. So it's just like, so you get it just right, and that's just the way you wanted, right? It's not exactly perfect here, but this is just an example. And then if you also want to do it, you can do it with any other shape too, right? So if you want to bend this one, that looks correct, do it like this. And then if you want to go to this other end, remember, repeat the process, right? So if we move the point over here, right, you can make the curves match. You can see my horrible looking T, right? But this is just a small, like, and then once you know how to do those things, you can pretty much do anything. Just repeat this process until you actually, like, make this thing actually look like the thing you want, right? So if I just go here and click D, to get the color of the red here, go back up here. You'll see the colors actually there, but if I click D, fill, show, now boom, my messy T is back, right? But there's got to be a way out of this, you say, right? How do you actually worm your way out of this? So one thing you can do is, you'll know, I mentioned I wasn't trying to be precise there. You want to know a better way to even be more precise? Just use letters. What if I just did a lowercase t? You know, just a little bit like this. And then let's say I pick, you know, a certain font I have installed in my computer. And then maybe if I increase the size a lot, right? Maybe to like 48 pixels. Hey, look at that. This T here looks it looks awfully familiar, huh? And let's say, what if we made it bold? And it's like, now that T looks really familiar, huh? Doesn't it? What we can do is we can make this extra big, you know. Forget exactly what the size of this really was, but look at that. It's the same T that everyone knows, right? Then if I press S, whoops, not that S. Press S to move, and move it in place. And then boom. Now have my thing, right? Oh, look. Literally just replicated it by using text. Huh. Funny how that works out, right, kids? So then if I also want to duplicate, so if you right click, Control D on your layer to duplicate, right? Oh, whoops. So I want to duplicate this one, right? So remember if we go back to the logo here, you'll see it has this little blue shade. Remember, D, select the color, go back up here, and then we're gonna make this blue. Blue. Yeah, boom, look at that. It's now blue. Oops, that's the measure tool. And then what we can do is then you can adjust the layers here, right? So you'll notice that there's a text one. You can also rename them. Double click on them to rename them, by the way. So if I want to name this blue T, I want to name this one red T. Look at that. So now you can move blue T around, right? You can just shuffle them around so that just so you can get it just right. And you can drag and drop the layers, like move them around, right? Mostly I just want to get this blue layer underneath the red. I get the blue underneath the red. Can adjust it like this. And hey, look at that. It's the logo. Oh, funny how that works, right? And now that you have your final project, you can actually just go up to here, right? You want to click this thing, it says export, right? And then this little window will open up on the side here. This little window right here will actually give you a good way to actually export your thing. And this is going to be a nice, cute SVG for you to distribute, right? So by default, when you save your documents here, right? So if I just click Save As, right? This will actually save this to my computer as a Inkscape SVG, right? And you'll see here, I have here in Eye of Gnome, we have my my little thing, you know, just as I created, right, as an SVG. And the beauty of SVG files is because the computer identifies these as shapes, right? So if I go into a terminal and let's say I go into Vim, and I open subscribe.svg, you'll see here that it's actually just a series of instructions for each and every teeny tiny little curve that's done in my my shape here, right? Right down to even the font that I'm using. No matter where I go, and I can actually take this image and size it however I want. And you'll see, so here I have the image open in GIMP, right? And you'll see there's this little window here, right? And this window actually allows me to pick the size of this image, right? And because remember, SVGs can be sized however much you want, right? If I just insert it, you know, like so, you'll see that when I opened it, it's really tiny, right? This is only like 198 pixels, right? But if I go and insert this again, right? What if I want to make it 4,000 pixels, right? And you'll notice that it got really big. Now it got really, really big, right? But here, you'll notice that even though it's really big, you'll see that if you zoom in really carefully here, you'll see that this image actually didn't lose any quality, right? And that's a cool thing about SVGs. And I'll freely admit, I didn't know how to use any of this until a few weeks ago. But this is one of the powers of the stuff you can do through something like Inkscape. Truly an underrated tool. Will normal people find the use for this? Okay, maybe not. But I think one of it really does bring something in, make it interesting that you can actually just go into here and even just finely tune like shapes, right? And thus is the power of Inkscape. But let's what if we want to go even further with this, right? So let's say I want to add like another image, like let's say I want to take this Firefox image right here, right? Okay, boom. So I now have this, you'll see I have this Firefox image. It's filling up everything in the canvas, but whatever, right? But let's say I want to actually just go and recreate this, right? So sort of piecing everything together, sort of like to help piece everything together, right? Let's say you wanted to actually carve out like something here to actually do. You would just go here and then you would draw the shapes that you want, right? So B, and you just go here, you can trace over the shapes, and then boom, you get your thing. It's not the nicest looking F in the world. It looks probably more like a serial murderer wrote it. But you know what? If you take the time and energy, you too can make your SVGs look good. Do you want to get your own SVG? Hit the subscribe button. I will make an SVG of your YouTube profile icon. And if you don't get your profile icon in 2 weeks, you might have to come back and watch this video and like the video, right? See you all later. Enjoy your SVGs.